And I'm getting straight to the point. I'm going to Evermore this weekend. It's supposed to be like a fantasy adventure land with like quests you can go on, cool medieval fantasy sci-fi, maybe not sci-fi, cool medieval fantasy things to do. The reality is that it's a little under budget for how lofty their ideas are, but we're still going because it's still fun. And I've been promising my husband for like 2 years now that I would make him some sort of Renaissance outfit. Why am I so... That's worse. And today is the day that I actually do it, because I've been putting it off for a very, very long time, partly because I don't love making men's clothes, but mostly because I like to make things for just me to wear. Case in point. This is my Ren Fair outfit. I based it off of like a cute Hobbit outfit. There's a really grainy video that I made of me making this. I will link that here. Well, up in the corner or something. Anyways, I'd like to keep the same color scheme, so like greens, golds, blues. I ordered him a shirt off of Amazon. I can make this shirt, but I don't have time. I don't have time to go get the supplies. I don't have time to pattern it out, sew it together. All I have time for is maybe a vest. So that's what we're making today, is we're making a men's vest, and then we're going to Evermore. I'll survive. In this house we craft in pajamas. Let's get to it. First up on the agenda is picking out textiles. I sourced all of these materials from my pre-existing fabric stash. I have a fabric hoarding problem, which results in a pretty full fabric library, which is both a blessing and a curse. And after looking over the options, Chris chose a set of light green curtains for his material, which is basically that scene from A Knight's Tale.
Green, trimmed in a kind of pale green.
I can't find my little tripod. I have no idea where it's going. This is a bad angle, but we're gonna keep going. These are the only guy patterns that I have, and I've made that one for myself before, and it turned out spectacularly. But I showed my husband and I was like, what do you think? Which direction do you want to go in? And we decided that with the amount of fabric that I actually have to work with and the style that he wants, we're gonna try and go this direction. It's kind of like a tunic and the sleeves are cut off of it, so it's like sleeveless. And then I think he's just gonna wear his white Renaissance Fair shirt underneath it, and then probably just a pair of pants that he already owns, and then maybe his work boots. This guy has these boots on. That's not part of the pattern, and these are a huge mistake because they're butt ugly. So we're just gonna, there we go. Everything's right in the world. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this pattern out and maybe not record any of it because I can't find my little tripod. As usual, the first thing I like to do when using a pattern is I like to read through the instructions. I like to get an idea of what I'm actually in for before full-on jumping into the whole thing. I like to evaluate what pattern pieces I actually need to cut out and which ones I can omit. Regrettably, cutting out the tissue paper patterns is one of my least favorite steps of the process. The paper is so fragile and delicate, and I'm always worried that I will just tear into it like some kind of feral animal. Like, it's not my intention to destroy things, but that's like my constant worry when cutting out tissue patterns. Once I have all the proper pieces cut out, I like to evaluate my fabric and try to decide what is the best way to lay each pattern piece to maximize the amount of material I have. Doing this gets tremendously more difficult when you have a pattern to match because it adds an additional step in cutting each piece. I have never made this pattern before, I don't have time for a mock-up, and I am straight up going for it with this pattern. Just gonna do my best to visualize exactly where the stripes and the bulk of the pattern needs to be so that the tunic actually looks nice and is somewhat cohesive in the end. So it turns out that this pattern is way more complicated than my brain is capable of handling right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna cut the pieces out and hope I get them all and just start going at it, because I have read the instructions like 3 or 4 times now and I cannot visualize what it's supposed to look like. It can't be that hard because it's a simplicity pattern and their whole thing is like easy sewing, whatever that means. I am currently struggling, but I am not giving up. Remember how like 30 seconds ago I was talking about how matching the pattern can get tricky? Yeah, I was definitely talking about the pattern on the fabric itself. And I'm working with a pretty bold stripe and an ornate motif looking textile, which means it will be painfully obvious if the pattern doesn't match up. This means 2 things. 1, that I will definitely be wasting a lot of fabric trying to match the design, and 2, that I'm really gonna have to use my very last brain cell on this process, which is too bad because I was planning on using it to try and decide what I was gonna cook for dinner. So I guess we're just gonna have to go get Thai food from the place down the road again. I'm so disappointed. Now, I very much wish that this is where my struggles ended and that making this tunic vest thingy for my dear husband was smooth sailing from here on out, but that is just not the case. It was a real struggle to match the pieces up and follow the instructions to get this thing to come together. I legit resorted to reading the Spanish instructions because they were actually better written than the English ones, and like with so many of my projects, what I ultimately decided to do was just trust my gut and go with what I kind of thought would work. I mean, at the end of the day, I really want this vest to look good, I want it to fit nice, but the reality is that sometimes you just have to get a little creative to make that actually happen. And even then, some things are just not meant to be. That being said, the light at the end of this tunnel is that if you keep practicing, keep sewing, keep cutting things up and making them into new and different things, then you will eventually acquire a skill that I like to call the Tim Gunn principle, where you really can just make it work. It might not be what you had originally planned, it might not look like your original sketch, it might not even function for the originally intended function, but you can make it work. Luckily in this case, the vest very much does turn out very vest-like. I mean, the tunic does eventually be tunicking, but so many projects that I have worked on that were supposed to be one thing totally end up being something completely different, and that's how I ended up with pillowcases that were supposed to be dresses and dresses that were supposed to be completely different other dresses. It is what it is, and I just embrace it. But back to the project at hand. Honestly, I can't believe you guys even listen to me rant like that for as long as I do. No, but seriously, back to the project. The thrifted green curtain that I'm using to make the tunic had a curtain lining sewn into it, so like the thrifty crafty gal I am, I'm using the curtain lining for the vest lining. Friendly reminder that pattern weights don't have to be fancy special things that you buy at an overpriced green logo fabric store. I'm looking at you, ho-ans. But rolls of tapes and empty mugs work just fine. Emphasis on empty. You do not want to set a mug full of liquid onto your project. It's a bad move and a rookie mistake, you guys. I'm telling you this from experience. Like, live your life, but just know you've been warned. But at this point in the vest, I've already assembled the outer tunic, so assembling the inner lining is just a repeat process, and thank the craft gods, because I really needed a mental break from trying to figure out how to sew it all together in the first place. Some of you may have already noticed that the lining of this material is really thin, flimsy, and it's 100% polyester. That means the fabric is literally just made of plastic. Unfortunately, we live in a plastic world where plastic is absolutely everywhere. I would have loved to make this tunic out of some fine, luxurious textile, but on this page we use what we have available. So my best 3 tips for sewing flimsy plastic fabric are as follows. 1. Use a sharp needle. This will help your machine sew the pieces together without puckering. 2. Work slowly. Take your time because ripping thread out of this kind of fabric is really, really terrible and it totally sucks. And 3. Don't make yourself feel bad about using polyester. Obviously, in an ideal world, we would all have access to affordable and sustainable natural fibers, but if what you have available and on hand is polyester, then just do your best to embrace it. We all start somewhere, and this was just a thrifted curtain that had been at the secondhand shop for over a month before I bought it. It was going to be sent to a landfill, and now, spoiler alert, it is a semi-splendid green-on-green tunic that my husband can wear to Renaissance fairs. And all the little scrap fabrics and cut-off pieces got put into my scrap box for my nieces and nephews to pick through and make things with, or for me to use for fillings and accent fabrics. You guys, recycling fabric is dope. Do not feel bad about using what you have. I surely do not feel bad about using it. So just to catch you up on the tunic, I put the lining and the outer fabrics together, and then I encased the shoulder seams with matching bias tape. Then I just hemmed up the bottom of the tunic so that all the cut and loose/frayed ends of the fabric were all tucked away and secured. Polyester will fray like crazy, so be aware of that as well. Then I wanted to add a little bit of a fancy lad element to the tunic, so I had a little bit of this gold trim left over from my Ren Fair outfit, and I decided I could just stitch that right onto the front. So I used a zigzag stitch and some invisible thread to secure the trim onto the vest, and that was it. Making the tunic took me about 2 days, but if I were to make it again, I could probably do it in 5 to 6 hours. It's so much easier to just do it the second time because you don't have to figure anything out. This is the outfit that I plan on wearing to Evermore. I made it a while ago. There is a video on my channel about it already, but since you're here, I'll just do a quick run through. Here we go. I picked my fabric out, everything was thrifted, and then I had my pattern and I cut it out and I kept cutting it out and then I sewed it all together. Turns out this is a really easy pattern to follow. The fit isn't that great in the very end, but it is still kind of cute. Everything was just kind of like pieced, mismatched together. I'm not reading off a script. Normally I read off a script. Feeling really weird and anxious right now. It's going so fast. Oh my gosh. Okay, so boning channels. I did all those. I inserted them, and then I had this box of stuff and I sewed it on. Oh my gosh, it's going so fast. Holy crap. Oh man, remember my living room used to look like that? All that furniture is gone. We sold it. Anyways, making the little tunic-y thing. No, not tunic. What's it called? Chemise? The chemise. Also thrifted fabric. Holy crap. What else did I do? made a nightgown thingy, and then it was the skirt time, and this is really me in real life. You guys always get a really polished, refined version of who I am and what I sound like, but if it's just me left to my own thoughts and devices, this is what you get, and man is it terrible. So it kind of turns out that if I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about, I have to type out what I want to say before I hit record. Flying by the seat of my pants does not work. Anyways, here's the outfit. Take it or leave it. I need a little break. I have a lot of anxiety right now. I decided I wanted to do a few minor updates to my outfit before we left for Evermore, so I swapped out the green ribbon for gold cording, and this is just what laces up the front of the bodice. And then I added some gold lace to the bottom hem of the blue circle skirt. My plan is just to add a little bit to this costume every time I wear it so that eventually it's like one of those really cool, detailed, ornate Ren Fair costumes. And I'm planning on doing the same thing for Chris's outfit, but his needs a little bit more work because I just barely started collecting things for him. He did decide that he wanted to carry a bag around with us, so he replaced the old strap on his little bag with a leather belt and made it look a little bit more old-timey. He is super crafty, like legit, he's a very skilled craftsman, and if he has the time and the tools, he can make almost anything. And then we were off! We were so excited to explore Evermore Park. We met up with some friends and walked around just to see the sights at first, and then we got into some of the games and quests that they have available. We shot bows and arrows, and Chris did really well. I kind of struggled to keep the arrow even on the bow, definitely not my proudest moment, but I assure you, I redeemed myself only moments later, when after just a few tries at knife throwing, I got the hang of it and was absolutely sinking ninja stars into the bullseye. We threw knives for like an hour, and now we want to build a cage thingy in our backyard so we can just casually throw knives whenever we want. Let me know if you want a video of how we make the knife throwing setup, because we definitely have plans in motion and both of us are very excited about it. We ended up participating in the Dragon's Guild quest, which pretty much just meant we had to go find little clues around the park, one of which we found in the spooky haunted mausoleum. The food in the park isn't too bad, but the ice cream and the cookies are kind of amazing, like way better than you would expect. All in all, we had a good time. Evermore is a fun place to visit and walk around, but there isn't actually much to do. You know, like it's not an amusement park like Disneyland or Six Flags. There's no rides or anything like that. It's quite small, but it's still a fun weekend activity to go and enjoy. Well, that was it. We had a really fun time at Evermore. Do I feel like we have to go again? Not necessarily. There were other things we could have done while we were there, but I feel like the experience we had was plenty. As far as the outfit goes, I'm really happy with how Chris's outfit turned out. Obviously, the only part I even made of it was the tunic vest, over thingy. 10 out of 10 for the materials I had on hand and the time I had available. Now, what I would change, I would definitely plan a little bit further ahead. Next time I make him something, I really don't want it to be last minute, spur of the moment. I want it to be well thought out and planned. And I have an idea for a full ensemble that I want to make him one day in the future, and it's got a quilted tunic and lots of details, and I think he deserves to have something nice that he actually likes wearing. Not that he doesn't like wearing the green tunic that I made him. I think he liked it just fine, and it was perfect because it was hot and it was summertime, so there weren't a ton of layers. But eventually I do want to make him something spectacular because he deserves it. The pattern that I used, okay, I genuinely love simplicity patterns. Do not get me wrong. I think they are a great starting off point, a great place for beginners to get familiar with patterns, but I get frustrated with their patterns because they don't always turn out very well. Sometimes the instructions aren't super clear, and sometimes the fit of them doesn't really fit a human. And I can tailor things. I know how to change and adjust things to make them fit bigger, smaller, different size proportions. It's not a problem for me to use one of their patterns, but I remember when I first started learning how to sew, and I was teaching myself at this point. I hadn't really taken any lessons, I hadn't really gone to school yet. Not that I ever even went to school because I quit fashion school in the first semester. I remember feeling so frustrated that it wasn't just working out the way that it said it was gonna work out, and things didn't fit and they puckered, and like there was just like gaping everywhere. It's one of the reasons why I like to draft my own patterns. I've gotten fairly good at it. My heart goes out to people who are learning how to sew and they pick up a simplicity pattern, because sometimes you can get these patterns for like $1 or $2 at the fabric store, and you're super excited to try it out. You cut everything up and then you get into the thick of it and you're like, this doesn't quite make sense. I don't know how to do this part. This doesn't look right. Am I doing it? Am I not doing it? I don't know. I don't even know who to ask. I feel like every sewist that has followed a pattern has been there, and it is frustrating. And I got frustrated with this project and with this pattern, and it shouldn't be a super difficult pattern, shouldn't be a super difficult project. It didn't even take me very long, but I think I spent equal parts actually working on the costume as feeling frustrated by the how to put it together part of making the costume, if that even makes sense. If I'm not making sense, well, I don't know what to tell you, but that was a little frustrating for me. I figured it out, but I do think across the board, simplicity patterns could have better instructions. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I love YouTube and like social media so much, is because other people have made a lot of these patterns. You can just type in the pattern number, and a lot of times a tutorial will pop up and someone will be like, making pattern 1625 with me, and then you can just follow along with them, and it takes all the frustration out of it. As far as my costume goes, I'm looking at it, it's over there. I love my costume. I've worked on my costume for like a year about now. Like each time I wear it, I add something different to it. So like this time I added the gold cording for like the bodice laces and the gold lace trim on the bottom of the skirt. I love it. I think it is just so fancy and cute. I wear my little hat with it. I got so many nice compliments from people at Evermore being like, where did you get this? And I was like, dude, I made this. And that is so rewarding as a creator. First of all, because I am so vain and into myself and into my skills and into what I can do. And secondly, because it's just nice when people appreciate you. It's just nice when people are like, hey, that's cool. And you're like, yeah, thanks, I made it myself. Anyways, I have other things I need to do today. So if you're not subscribed, now is the time to hit that little bell icon, get subscribed. I don't post regularly anymore, so who knows when the next video will be up. Could be next week, could be next month, but I'm probably not gonna stop making videos, I will say that. Huge thank you to my regular watchers. You guys are awesome. Like, I disappeared for quite a while, and then when I posted again, you guys were just like, hey, you're back. And I was just like, oh, hey, I am back, and I'm so glad you're still here and interested in what I have to do and what I have to say, because let's be honest, most of what I have to do is a little chaotic, and everything that I have to say is ridiculous. It is what it is. Oh, I did wash my hair this morning. Some of you will appreciate that, but I digress. For more content, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Alexandria Lane. Like and comment, subscribe, all of those things. And in this house, we craft in pajamas. I just realized I filmed the reveal of this outfit without actually pulling the sleeves out, so it looks like there's no arms. They're in here. They're big and puffy because that's the way I like things, right? There's one sleeve. Just gonna pull the second one out here real quick, and there's the other. So much better. I felt like something looked wrong when I was filming it, but I was like, things go wrong all the time. This is normal for me.